Hey kids, thanks for joining me in the garage. Today we're repairing the AC on the 99 4Runner. Had a bit of an issue where the AC condenser ran into a drill bit. So we're going to replace the AC condenser, new Drier receiver, and then I've got all the tools and parts to get that all charged back up. So stick with me here, like, subscribe, comment down below. You can always follow me on Instagram and now on TikTok at Weekend Wrench Turner. See you in just a minute. So to get started here, the first thing you're going to want to do with your vehicle is discharge the AC system. Now, that's probably not something that you want to do at home. The machines that recycle that refrigerant are fairly expensive, and so I'd recommend go ahead and take that to a shop. Typically, they'll pull the refrigerant out and put it back in for you for one charge. At least that's been my experience. Since my system is actually discharged now, I'm just going to be recharging it. And so what I found is the cheapest way to do that is to go ahead and buy yourself a set of gauges and all the necessary vacuum pump and parts. It was just going to be cheaper to do that myself since I didn't have to pay to have somebody discharge it. So the things you're going to need for this, obviously, since my condenser has a hole in it now, is a Denso AC condenser. And so that is part number 4770518. And then also a Drier receiver. And so this you'll always want to replace whenever you open the system. It is 88471-34010. Obviously, you're going to need some refrigerant. So I've got 134A, which is your typical refrigerant in these systems in automobiles. You're also going to want to have some PAG oil. And so this, replaces some of the oil that flows through the system to keep your compressor for your AC nice and lubed and happy. So the other thing you're going to need is a set of AC gauges. Got these on Amazon. I will put the link down in the description for these. These aren't fairly expensive, $40, $50. We'll see. This is the first time I'm using them, so we'll see how good they are, and maybe I'll leave a review on Amazon. And then obviously you're going to need a vacuum pump. And so the one I picked is just the little $20 air vacuum pump from Harbor Freight. And you can buy single stage and two stage ones. This one again was $20. The ones that are electric run anywhere between $80 and $120 depending on if you have a single stage or a dual stage. And so that's pretty much everything you're going to need, obviously wrenches and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this car out. We'll pull the 4Runner in, and I'm going to take the front bumper off just to make it easier for me to get in there and also for you to see how to change out this condenser and the receiver dryer. So we'll do that first, and then after that we'll get it charged. All right, as you can see here, I've got the front bumper off, and I've got a few things. I got this transmission cooler that needs to come off, and then this center post got to come off. So I'm going to get those kind of all cleared out. I will need to pull the fitting off of the Drier receiver here, and then probably pull the one down in this lower corner here as well. That way we can get this rod off and be able to pull this center support out. That way we can get the rest of this stuff pulled out. So let's do that now, and then I'll show you, essentially there are on this, it's connected here, and also there's a couple little brackets here. Once I get this off of here, we'll pull this out, and I'll kind of show you how that's all connected. So let's get that out now. All right, as you can see, we got everything unhooked now. Got the brackets on the top here. We got we got the dryer receiver connection, and then we've got the condenser connection here. So just pull that out. One thing to note, and I'll show you, for instance, on this high side, on each of the connectors here, you've got an O-ring, and so we're going to be replacing these O-rings. I'll show you the kit that I have to be able to replace those. Want to be careful with these lines as you're pulling this out, and then obviously be careful with this as you pull this out. So as you put the new one in, you'll want to be especially careful so you don't bend any of these fins, but we'll deal with that once we get to it here. All right, there we go. Condenser is out. Time to unbox the new one, and we'll put it in. All right, here's the new condenser. As you can see, there's no hole from a drill bit. So a couple of things you'll want to note here. Each of the inlets and the outlets have a little rubber cover. You're going to want to hold off pulling that out until you're ready to plug in that inlet and outlet. So one thing you want to make sure you do is get this thing put in the correct orientation. On this particular one, you'll see there's some numbers down here. So that's going to be the bottom. They look really similar. This tab up here is also where this comes in, and so that's how you can differentiate the two holes. See, there's no little tab down here. So let's slide this in. And so first thing we'll do now is we'll put these little brackets on the tabs here. So that goes on these little tabs. So those little tabs there do have a bolt that go in. And then I'll go ahead and put this horn buzzer back in here. These top tabs here have a little nut that slips in over these tabs up at the top here. So we'll clip that in. All right, so I've got here this little O-ring assortment, and so that's one of the things that as you're going through here you're going to want to do is replace these little O-rings. And now this is kind of hard to see, but there's just a little O-ring, and so you're going to want to make sure you replace these. So let's find the correct size here. Now you never want to put in O-rings dry. So I'll grab a little bit of PAG oil and put that in there. So I got that a little bit lubed up there. Slip that on over. At this point we can pull this rubber grommet off and we'll press this in there. Nice and sealed up now. Don't want to go too tight on this. That is aluminum, and but you do want to make sure it's nice and snug so that that's not going to go anywhere. All right, next thing is you get this O-ring off. It's a much smaller O-ring. Let's figure out what size that is. I think that's it right there. Again, a little bit of PAG oil on there. Get that in there. All right. So now the next thing is I'm going to get this center support in, get that back on. All right, let's get the receiver put in now. So we'll also, at the same time we're doing the receiver, we'll want to put in this high side. And so oriented like this, where this goes on this low end, and then this also goes into the receiver. And so let's replace these O-rings. All right, next thing is to put this dryer in, and just like anything else that has a seal on it, as you can see, and so you want to take that off and be kind of as quick as possible. This essentially is responsible for removing moisture in the AC system, and so you want to kind of be quick as you're taking this off. That way you don't introduce moisture unnecessarily. So it has kind of a particular orientation to it. And so as you can see, there's kind of this teardropped shape to it. And so this teardrop shape, so this side goes on this black high side, and then the pointed end goes towards the low side. And then finally you have the bracket for holding the receiver, and so that goes on in this orientation, as you can see with the screw. So you'll have another little captive nut here that'll go in that you can then slide this up onto. And then that's nice and secure. All right, so we've got this all back in, so and all sealed up. Just want to double check, make sure everything's nice and tight. Obviously got the transmission cooler back in place, horns, everything. And so now let's get the bumper back on, and then we'll go up and we'll get this system charged. All right, I got everything put back on. Now we're going to be hooking the vacuum gauge. So the high side, as you can see here, is located right up front. And then the low side is located right over here. You just take off, there's little caps on them, and you just hook those on. The instructions are pretty straightforward as far as where to get these hooked up and how to get them hooked up. In the instructions for these vacuum gauges. So one of the first things you want to do is get this hooked up to the vacuum pump here. And so I'm going to make sure that this is off the low side. So as you can see, I've got the high side unhooked. That's for a reason. I'm going to come back to that in just a moment here. And I'm going to make sure that the low side valve is closed. So I've already pulled a vacuum, and so I've been testing to make sure that the system is all sealed up. But the way you do this is hook up your yellow line in the middle here. This is the line that is used to pull vacuum and to add refrigerant. And then you simply take your air line here and hook it up to this pump. So this is probably going to get a little noisy, so the air compressor will come on. I got this set to about 90 psi on here. So let's hook this up now. Then you open up your low side and open up low side over here. And that's going to pull a vacuum. So as you saw there, one of the things that I did is, I pulled off the vacuum pump and I put this little cap on there. Now, this is one complaint I have about this gauge set. There's not really a way to, at least in my setup, now with an electronic vacuum pump, it may be different, but with these little air operated vacuum pumps, the problem is there's no way to lock off the vacuum, the yellow line, the vacuum line, in order to test that the pressure stays in the system. So what I did is this little black cap came with the air operated vacuum pump, and I just put that on there on the middle, and that way it'll hold vacuum, and I've opened up this valve and then also the low side valve as well, and you can see it, I've done this once already, and you can see that it very easily holds that about 24, 25, negative PSI. That way it's holding vacuum and the system is all sealed up. And so I left that for about half an hour or so, and it hasn't moved at all. Next thing to do is we've got to get oil in the system. And so to do that, that's why I've left this high side off. So basically what you do is you open up this high side while it's pulling a vacuum on the low side, and then dip this down in your PAG oil, and that'll suck up that oil. And so I've already put 40 cc's. It recommends when you replace the dryer to add 20 cc's. When you replace the condenser, it says to add between 40 and 50 cc's. So that, it's around 60 to 70 cc's. And so, like I said, I've already added 40. And so I've got another 20 right here that I'm going to add into the system. And then maybe just a little bit more to kind of top it off because it doesn't suck up everything in there. So let's hook this back up here, and then we'll have it pull the vacuum, and then we'll suck in some more PAG oil. All right, we've got the gauges all set up here, and so now we've got our refrigerant hooked up, and so the way you get these on there, to get it cranked on there, just about hand tight, and then you crank this knob all the way down, and then release it up just a little bit. Now, you will need to purge the yellow line. The yellow line, you just basically just back it off a little bit there, as you can hear. That purged it just a little bit already. And so you just want to put a little bit through there. That way there's no air in these lines. And so before we get this going here, we've got the low side all the way on, the high side also all the way on, but we're not going to turn the high side on up on the manifold gauges. And so you want to keep that off, but we will turn on the low side. And then we'll get the car started, we'll get the AC turned on, and then we'll get some of this AC drawn into the system. So let me go turn the car on here. It's going to get a little loud, but hopefully you'll be able to kind of see what I'm doing here, and I'll put some instructions on the screen as I go along. All right, so as you can see there, I showed the sight glass there, and you can see there's no bubbles in there. I put this actually, so you can see it shows here on the tag. If you can see that, let's put a light on it, that it requires 1.54 pounds. That's going to be really hard to see, I think. But I put in 2 cans, and each can is 12 ounces. And so right at about 2 pound or a pound and a half, as shown on the sticker there, it's between 1.32 and 1.54 pounds, or essentially 24, around 24 ounces would be right in that range there. So 2 of these cans are 12 ounces apiece, so 24 ounces. So, and as you saw, as it runs within spec there. And, you know, it's supposed to be between 21 and 36 on the low side, so it's a little high. And then between 198 and 227 PSI on the high side. And so it looks as though it runs right in spec there. And so I think everything's good. And so I think I got everything buttoned up. The AC is blowing really cold now, so I appreciate that. Now it's going to be 100 degrees here this coming week. So appreciate you watching. If you like what you saw, hit that thumbs up. If you're here for the first time, consider subscribing. Don't forget you can follow me on Instagram and now TikTok at Weekend Rich Turner. Thanks for watching. Keep on wrenching.